Dan, thank you very much for joining me.
No problem.
I want to start about last season because for you personally, I think last season was brilliant, right? You know, you got the win, the pole positions, it was all starting to click. On reflection, how was it for you?
Yeah, I mean, look, the first 3 seasons in Formula E were pretty awful. There's no shying away from that. And I think a number of ignorant people just sort of started thinking I wasn't very good. But, you know, it's nice to be back in a car that at times was good enough to show that, you know, I can still go and win and be on pole. And so, yeah, I think it all sort of came as a bit of a whole, really. I think the new investors, their sort of, you know, ethos of how they want to run the team sort of suit me, you know, allow the people to be themselves, you know, be authentic. So I was immediately started enjoying the off-track stuff more. And then obviously the fact that we were able to do the deal with Porsche and Cupra, some good investment to bring the car forward, yeah, yielded some results. The first third of the season certainly was a bit tough, getting to grips with everything. You know, the team, we were still a very small outfit, obviously a year ago.
Yep.
So tough at the start, but we got there. Yeah.
Yeah. I was speaking to Ollie earlier about he was using a sports psychologist last year. Is that something that you've used, obviously, because you've had a turbulent career, I'd say? Is that something that you?
Yeah, it's a very difficult thing to sort of clear up. No, I haven't. People might think, oh, he does need one, but to be honest, a lot of the frustration that's stemmed, certainly in my Formula E career or the latter stages of, you know, the F2 times and Super Formula and all that period, is I had some very misfortunate political stuff with the new super license ruling, which we've spoken about before, and that led to me sort of losing my passion and love for the sport, if I'm honest. So I sort of felt a bit ill-treated. A lot of stuff was unjust. So everything was a bit of a battle for those few years. And then, you know, spending 3 years of your career, which as a racing driver is a long time, in the worst car, you know, yeah, compounded with all the stuff that happened a few years before, it was just like, it was a tough time, you know, mentally. Like I wasn't particularly happy. So, you know, I think that showed. I was getting frustrated by things that I maybe shouldn't have. Having said that, in terms of who I am as a person, you know, I'm very similar really to when I was 18. I just think, obviously, the previous season, I was, you know, fighting and, you know, up at the front a lot more, and there was a lot more positivity surrounding it. And I think people got the chance to sort of see me when I'm not just screaming on the radio, you know, so it wasn't all just negative. And I think more and more people start to value that I'm just authentic and I say it as it is, and you know, I'm not just a polished, you know, robot basically.
I think we're quite lucky. We get to see kind of the real you, and people don't always get to see that. They just get to see what happens on the racetrack, and that's they form their view from there. Because I think we've always known that. We always think that you're a great guy, and you always speak the truth, which we're happy about.
No, I'm very respectful to the right people. I'm quite a sensitive character really, and I care a lot about, you know, people. And I think people don't see that. I mean, I think, look, obviously I like to slag off the haters, you know, to the nth degree. To be fair to them, and this might be me getting a bit older now, like, when you have you know, some like a hype train of something, or, you know, a narrative keeps getting pushed, you know, which was constantly negative around my name for a few years, it's very hard, if you're not paying attention to everything, to not have that opinion on me. So I kind of get it to an extent, but yeah, it didn't bother me in the last few years really.
But I want to put a positive spin on it, because obviously last season what you showed in Monaco for me, I sat there and I went, wow, right, this guy's got it. And then you backed it up with that win in Jakarta, right? And then I'm thinking, right, because I know from from like the ban and what happened, the incident, it's 10 years on, and I thought to myself, surely in 10 years' time, we're not going to be talking about the same thing of what he did when he was 15.
Still.
But do you think that win now, that gives you a bit of credibility, that gives you a bit of something to say, actually, you can start changing the mindset of these people because of the performances you've shown it?
I'd say so. I'd say, obviously, you know, I had a very successful campaign in F3. F2, like, I was with Dams and then Carlin, never quite had the strongest package or enough to win the championship, but, you know, I had to phone Helmut Marko after I got banned and tell him, and he basically said, tell me when you get your license. But I mean, I thought my career was over at that time, you know, quite obviously, and a lot of other people did too. But I mean, I phoned him up like he asked when I got my license back. He signed me straight away, and I had some great times at Red Bull and some good success. And I was sort of, you know, the next one in line. Sort of, I don't want to, you know, say the next Max, but I was the next one in line after him. I still think to this day I'd struggle to beat Max, but I think pretty much everyone else I could give a very good run for their money. And you know, people forget that, you know, it wasn't my attitude actually that stopped me from going to Formula One. So that's the key thing, really. Yes, I didn't help myself. I'm not going to sit here and say, you know, say that I didn't you know, make it a bit more difficult than I needed to, but yeah, I think that's the key.
Yeah, no, for sure, I fully agree. But let's talk about sort of this season. I know, like, the car itself is an old powertrain. So how much can you do this year? Because obviously we're talking about changing that mindset of people, and if you go back to the back of the grid, it's not kind of your fault because of the car's not as developed. So is there a lot that you can do this season, or is it fully, I don't know 100% if you've got Porsche again for Gen 4, but but if you do have Porsche for Gen 4, then surely you must be excited because
absolutely,
Porsche
I think you know, without sort of sounding like a prima donna, I don't think I should have ever really been in the position that I was in the first few years in this championship. You know, my CV, if you like, before then, you know, I should have maybe done what Taylor's done, for example. I mean, arguably I had a, you know, better CV than him in places, but it's just how it panned out for me. You know, but looking at where we are now and the future, like you say, yeah, I mean, the Porsche deal going into Gen 4 is pretty key, obviously, and you know, I'm confident that'll happen. I'm very, very hopeful. This will be a very, very good place to be. Yeah, and you know, I've got to make sure that I'm on the top of my game this year. I've got a rookie as a teammate. You know, I've never been threatened by any teammate really, but Pepe's a good driver. But I've got to, you know, there'll be a lot of people up and down this pit lane and outside of Formula E that if the Porsche deal gets announced for Gen 4 that will want this seat. So, you know, I've really got to be on top form, yeah.
You talk about not being threatened by your teammate. Obviously, he's young. Do you feel that you're at that stage now where you're going to show that I can help teach Pepe and I can help?
No, absolutely. Yeah, I think for me, with the new investors, I've, you know, become quite close with Jeremy, and I see my sort of involvement in the team and the championship moving beyond being a driver many years in the future, you know. So I feel like I want to try and help build the team, you know, and I've sort of said to Jeremy, maybe we should get this sort of person in, or this person, not driver, I mean engineers and all that kind of stuff, just trying to help build the team in the best way possible. So yeah, I mean, the age gap's not that much, it's only 5 years, but in terms of where we are in our career, it's obviously different. I've been a professional driver for a few years now, and he's just come off that F1 ladder, and I have to say he's been, you know, very, very enthusiastic, really nice kid, I have to say. So I think we'll enjoy ourselves and have a good camaraderie, which is always nice. But you know, look, what will be will be. You know, there might be a day when a teammate ends up beating me, but all drivers will sit here and say, you know, racing is life and all these awful things that people say. There are other things going on in the world, you know. So I'm looking at doing other things alongside FE, but you know, I will always do my job, and I still believe, you know, I'm one of the fastest to do it. So yeah.
So in terms of what you want to achieve for this season, is trying to, because yesterday you were fastest, I think, in the final session, right? So the pace is still there, which is really cool to see, considering people have had the software update. So that's positive.
Yes.
Do you think that can translate to the street tracks and this season, or do you think it's still going to be a bit harder?
I think this track is probably shows our car's weaknesses, actually, even compared to the Porsche. I mean, I can't go into detail. I mean, yes, as you've touched on, which I'm not really supposed to speak about, we are in the older car. I think most people know that by now, to be honest. But in terms of efficiency in the races, it's very little difference. It's other things which I can't talk about, which, you know, a track like this makes it not quite as strong, or like Shanghai or those sorts of circuits. So, you know, the last few days we've been looking at setup routes to sort of work around that in the best way possible. And I feel like we've made some good progress. But we've got a load of new software stuff with brake controls, and just sort of philosophy of how we control the motors is a bit different. So we've been sweeping and working on that, which is also quite interesting, and there's some positives to it, I would say. So yeah, I mean, I don't particularly enjoy testing at Valencia.
Yeah.
I mean, particularly this week with this tyre combination and the state that the track's in at the moment, it just seems to change from session to session. It's very hard to get a read on a back-to-back change, and the other drivers are saying the same. It's not nice to drive.
How was the simulation race then? Because obviously I know we had a lot of red flags and took a long time.
We were sort of doing our own thing, to be honest.
Yeah. So you didn't really take it as a race?
No, kind of. But we were focused on doing some toe running, so we dropped to the back. And,
I saw that.
Yeah, did some toe running. But yeah, there wasn't much to learn from that. No.
And then just finally from me, because I know you love cars, right? And we did a nice piece with you in London surrounding cars.
That's where all of the passion comes from.
Yeah. So I want to know what came first. You know, like, was it your love of cars led you to the left of motorsport? Or was it the other way around?
100%. For most drivers, I probably speak for 90%. I think all of them would have had an interest in cars at some point. But you know, I don't use this term in a negative way or in a bad light at all, but I was like autistically fascinated with cars, like from as young as I can remember, you know, and probably still am a little bit. But yeah, everything was always cars. And you know, I'm not from a racing background or, you know, huge money, and my dad obviously recognised my passion, and my parents have been, you know, unbelievable at that, with all my brothers as well, as you know, recognising what they like and trying to support them. And you know, I had a lot of support. Was able to get started and go karting, and it turned out I was luckily pretty good at it. And, so to race cars for a living, I mean, was always the dream. But I mean, now, just very briefly, I'm working on starting my own TV show.
Yes. You can tell more about that. I'm interested.
It'll have a very similar flavour to Top Gear, to be honest. I think that's been missing since the original trio. Obviously, they did the Grand Tour, but you know, you could sort of tell that was them going on holiday and just being filmed at the same time. It wasn't like old Top Gear with challenges in cars, and and obviously people have tried to copy it. You can't just pluck someone from Hollywood and someone from here and hope that it works. You know, the key aspect of it is the camaraderie. So, and I feel like that's been missed in every remake. So I've got that nailed. I'm sure I have. Whether they're going to be any good on camera, I think they will. They're both quite they're intelligent guys, maybe more so than me. And I think they'll understand what it needs to look like. But we have like unbelievable camaraderie. We've been two best mates. Three of us have been best mates for, you know, one of them for over a decade. And so and you know, they love cars equally, if not more than me, you know, so our whole life is just cars. I mean, I've been friends with them for years. I don't think I know anything about their personal life at all. We just sit in the pub and just talk about cars. So so the plan is to you know, have a bit of a controversial show. You know, I think we've gone through a time in the last decade of sort of the extreme woke period, and I think people are getting fed up with it. So I think now's a good time for a sort of authentic three blokes sort of around with cars, to be honest. So and obviously I've got a bit of a USP in the fact that I obviously race cars for a living. So you know, when I do the serious reviews of a new car, you know, I'd like to think, you know, people go to Chris Harris when they want a proper review of how a car feels when it's being pushed properly. So I'll be able to do that kind of stuff, and we'll see how it goes. So I'm filming a pilot in South Africa. I leave next week.
Okay.
So
nice.
Going to film a pilot, make a sizzle reel, and then go to all the streaming platforms and see if anyone's interested in it, really.
We'll definitely be interested.
I'll put some YouTube content out along the way. and I'm sure, yeah, some of you guys will all see it. So yeah.
Perfect. Well, Dan, best of luck for the season. Thank you for talking.
Cheers.
Really appreciate it.
No problem.